Hello everyone and welcome to the patch 25.04. Not sure why it's not 25.4, but at least Riot completely obliterated the past name. It didn't make any sense to have 25.season 1.1, so now they're changing it back into the norm, but then they gave me some OCD because they say it's 25.04. And then they say it will be 26.1 instead of 26.01. Anyways, it's Riot, so yeah. About the honors, we don't really care much, but about the overall highlights, here's the picture. And let's look into it. So champions, we'll begin with Ashe. Overall, her kit will get more damage because she has been quite recently gutted in comparison to the other marksmen, so they want to compensate that and provide her more damage, not only in her Q but also in W and ultimate. I think Ashe in competitive can be occasionally fine despite other ADCs being a lot better, but Ashe is definitely not only getting more popularity back in solo queue but also in competitive because she has been quite a dominant pick because of how good her utility can be as well. Keep in mind that there was a specific change that it was even more obnoxious than this one, but the fact that secondary target damage gets 100% of the damage, this is huge because it gives you a lot of damage. This is like, instead of receiving 100 damage, for example, now you will deal 250 to both targets, which is really big for damage. AD ratio from W will also be increased, so this means it will be a scaling buff, not early game buff, which is everything that they want to do with Ashe when transitioning into the mid game as well. Diana monster damage is being decreased. She has been dominating a bit, but I don't think this monster damage change makes much sense because her monster clear is not even that quick to do in the first place. Yes, she has been gaining some popularity, but it's mainly because of the new build that has been popping. And they're nerfing Diana in the jungle and making sure that she gets increased value when it comes to mid lane. This also makes up a bit for the loss of damage in monster in percentage, but it's still a bit annoying in that regard. Maximum damage for Diana in mid lane will also be increased, which means mid lane Diana is completely buffed, while her passive is essentially reducing the effectiveness of her clear. Either way. So it's pretty good either way for Diana mid. Diana jungle will be slightly weaker. Ekko, his damage on Q will change to 10 plus. We don't care about the level 9 change. We mostly care about level 5, level 7 when he increases his ability. And having 10 more damage makes it possible for Ekko to have more reliable wave clear earlier. So for example, if you go into base and you have an alternator at level 7, this provides you the capacity to actually one-shot the wave instead of having to hit the backline minions, for example. So it's a lot quicker for you to push out the wave and make any kind of movement that you want in the map. Really good change for Ekko. It will not change much in the jungle because, yeah, it's 10 more damage for sure, but it will mostly affect mid lane Ekko around level 5 to level 7. I believe level 9 will still remain the same, but it's 10 more damage, so yeah. It's quite impactful between level 5 and level 7, which means minute 5 until minute 8, around that. Elise, human form damage decreased, spider form cooldown decreased, bonus attack speed increased, spider link damage increased. Okay. Elise jungle was quite weak at the start of the season, but recent buffs to Dark Harvest and Electrocute have rocked her back to viability. However, Elise support has taken over and she's a bit too strong. Overall, so we're removing some of her support one-shot potential and buffing her sustained spider power so that she still has 8 legs to stand on as a jungler. So W damage is being reduced by 20% AP and also by 20 flat at level the last level. Initially, she will not be reduced in this regard, so it's completely it's fine regardless of losing a bit of AP percentage. Obviously hurts. Cooldown is going down into 6 seconds, however, when she is in spider form. So the attack speed being now increased instead makes so that this deals less damage, but it's more reliable when it comes to spider form, essentially, because the spiderling damage will deal more damage, so they want to nerf the support and make sure that she gets more reliability around her spider form in W instead of the burst damage from W when she's in human form. She will get compensated when moving into spider form instead. GP is getting 9 AD at level 18, 0.5 per level, so 9 AD at level 18. More scaling for GP, which is something that he likes, but still, this is not the reason why you're going to pick GP. I think GP is in a spot that he has a really weird build path. He's not really that healthy in the game, and is very situational. So I wouldn't say this is not enough for him to come back at all. So yeah, still 9 AD at level 18, but nothing special, I would say. It's not even a longsword, even. Hwei. Now, yeah, I mean, he has been quite obnoxious, mainly because he's a flexible pick. He can play mid, he can play AP carry, and he can play support, even. And a lot of teams, especially in competitive, have been playing it in both iterations as well. So they want to reduce his passive effectiveness by 5% AP. QW will be reduced into, oh my god, 20 damage. Okay. So this quite hurts because if you do the regular combo, you will lose 20 damage out of this initially, and then eventually it goes back into the same value. So this is sort of making Hwei a bit weaker in early stages, but when he reaches level 9, with this, it will be fine. The damage from the passive will make so that when you build more and more AP, you will feel this nerf more. And about this change as well, Searing Lights, which is a really strong ability because of the auto attacks and so on, it will deal -5 damage and -5% AP. It's not really the end of the world for Hwei. I believe we will be dealing and having less pressure. But it's a necessary change because he has been dominating not only solo queue but also competitive a lot. So I like this change for Hwei. Attack speed is now moving into 3.0. It's fairly simple because the attack speed cap has been increased in the past patch in 25.3. So they want to make Jayce so that he has the 3.0 capped on himself as well. Kalista, W damage decrease early. I mean, yeah, Kalista, when she's paired up in with the support, if she's not playing mid as I usually do, as Kalista, then yeah, the damage that the support can deal with the presence because of the max health can be quite annoying, especially for frontline supports. But with this change, it will make Kalista a bit less obnoxious and a bit less priority in comparison to how she is in this current patch. In competitive, Kog'Maw will lose 10 base damage initially, then it will be 15, 20, 25, and 30. And you will have 10% more AP. So he loses some damage initially and then he gains 10%. So basically all you need to have is 300 AP, which is not really something that you can achieve. AP Kog'Maw will be the same. I think AD Kog'Maw will be the same. It doesn't really change anything in my perspective. I think it's a joke of a nerf and Riot missed it completely. Lulu is in a strong state, I do agree, but I believe that Riot has been sleeping on Lulu for quite a long time, honestly. I don't think Lulu is necessarily strong right now only. I think she has been strong, and when a pick becomes popular, well, we know that Riot just goes hardcore on it, right? At this point, they want to reduce attack speed by 5% in every single rank, and the cooldown will be increased by 1 second at every single rank as well. The base damage and shields will be also decreased, so they want to move it to -20 by level 5 of this ability. Lulu is still fine, honestly, yes. You will lose some attack speed, and it will be 1 second later, but she will be in a good spot when she should be picked, regardless. Lulu is a really strong pick. Mel will be changed a lot. So she's a champion that has a lot of access to range, and they want to reduce or remove a portion of that range, basically. So her Q will have -50 range. Projectile will be 500 units not as quick as before. It will be a bit reduced, and Rebuttal is now going to be nerfed in duration. Mana cost is still going to 0 by the end, but it will have 20 more mana initially. And this is not an ability that you want to max at all. Reflected damage will now also be decreased when you reach later levels, because at level 1 it will still be the same. So yeah, it doesn't really change much, I would say. 0.25, yes, it's a bit of a change, but I think the rest of the kits will be slightly more felt. Root duration. It will be less time initially, then it becomes the same at 2.25. This is the ability you want to max second. W is the ability that you want to max last, obviously. And the hit damage will be increased in this case. So they want to reduce effectiveness from W and Q and try to compensate with damage while having less utility with the root, basically. And then eventually she will have more AP ratio per overwhelm stack. So they are trying to adjust Mel. I think she will be still in a good spot, but she was completely broken on release. It did not make any sense. The Redline, Nautilus. I do agree that Nautilus is not in the best shape in comparison to Rel, Leona, and not as popular. But this is ridiculous. Like, you're giving 15 more damage to Nautilus. I swear that you can already solo kill ADCs with Nautilus at level 1 with this current state. Giving 15 more damage when he can reset his Q, his reg line is quite obnoxious. So not a fan of this change, because yes, Nautilus is not as popular as Rel or Leona, but they're going a bit too big on Q damage, and I don't think they should look to buff this instead. I don't think it's a good choice. Sign change. Boss will like this very much because he's getting more armor and health regen. This is fairly simple to explain. Basically, he's getting 4 armor flat, which means if he wants to survive laning phase and not get as much as punished as he usually does, then providing him more sustainability with health regen and flat armor makes so that it becomes more tricky to kill Sion. If you're an AP champion, you won't feel this as much. You will still feel this because you will regen more HP, but especially if you're an AD champion that is looking to punish him or something like that, if you don't have true damage in your kit, then it becomes a lot harder for you to kill Sion. 4 armor when he stacks a lot of HP in initial stages is quite annoying to deal with. Teemo, monster damage will be increased to 20%. So basically they're kind of reverting, because Teemo at nerf in monster damage in his toxic shot, I believe. So they're sort of reverting the damage, and yeah, Teemo was quite annoying. Broxa is the first name that comes to my mind from the pro players that started to play this, and yeah. Warwick, one of the funniest changes of the patch is Q is going to cost 10 more mana in every single rank. Doesn't make any sense. I think Warwick having to invest 10 more mana in his Q will not change anything for the most part. So yeah. This is one of the worst changes of this patch, I believe. Doesn't make any sense at all. So yeah. Yasuo, critical damage reduction removed. So this means Yasuo is buffed, essentially. Instead of dealing 90% crit damage because of the reduction, now he will have the normal damage without any debuff or anything like that. To be fair, Yasuo has been quite unpopular recently, so it kind of makes sense. Abyssal Mask will have -5 magic resistance. I mean, the item was, despite being situational, is a really strong item and quite cheap as well as an option. So making sure that it has less resistances, then it should be fine. Fimbulwinter will still be in a good spot, but getting 80 less shields by the time that goes on. It's 30% less shielding in average cases, as they mentioned. So yes, you won't be as annoying as you were before with Fimbulwinter, but it's still an option that can be good to get in some moments. Obviously, champions that want to go Seraphs or Mirror Mana will have to think better about this, because maybe you want to get the shield from Seraph's Embrace, and sometimes you want to Mirror Mana damage instead of going for Fimbulwinter. Unless you really want to go in a in a bruiser-ish orientation. Sometimes it might change the build path that you want to take with the tier, but I wouldn't say that it's a huge change, as it might seem. Heartsteel 2% minus damage on consumption max health. I mean, this is fine. I think Heartsteel damage doesn't make any sense. I think it's not the first time it's being nerfed as well, so I'm a big fan of it. Infinity Edge is being, in my opinion, buffed, not adjusted. I think losing 5 AD and being 150 gold cheaper is definitely better because most marksmen are having issues to finish their itemization because items are so expensive. Also buff to Yone, Yasuo, and champions like that. So making sure that you can get this item on average 1 wave quicker definitely makes up for the 5 AD loss. So I would say it's completely a buff, and this 5 AD will not even be felt for the most part. Mercury Treads, I mean, sure, 50 golds, that's fine. I think it's too expensive. I'm always happy when I see the enemy building mercs because it's such an expensive boot setup that sometimes just want to go Swifties because of how expensive mercs are, because you have to farm 2 more waves. You can get Swifties or you farm 2 more waves to get Mercury Treads. If you're supporting, you're also investing a lot of gold into this, which is why the purple boots are so strong. But losing 50 gold in here and making sure that it's a bit more achievable, this is fine because it's still expensive. Let me see if I can drink a bit of water. Play the Steelcaps. 2% less. I mean, they didn't change the cost of the boots as well. So it's so expensive. Only reduces 10% instead of 12. And 2% is a lot. It's not the same thing as Fimbulwinter, for example. 2% loss in the boots is too much. Because when Riot nerfed boots into 10%, the boots were one of the worst in the game. They never tried 11%. And when it was 12%, it was too much. I believe that the sweet spot would be 11% and they could maintain the cost as it is. But 10% will not kill the boots entirely, but it won't be as good as they are because they are really broken. They're expensive, not as expensive as Mercury Treads, but they were really annoying and easy to build as well eventually. Symbiotic Soles, I mean, this is the funniest change of the patch. In my perspective, this is the worst change of the patch because these boots are really strong by default and they're giving it even more movement speed. Evolved is going to be 45 regardless, but the fact that you will get more movement speed while getting into the item, it doesn't make any sense. For me, it's one of the strongest boots in the game for top laners, for supports, sometimes for mages as well. ADCs cannot do it for the most part, and junglers, some junglers can do it. So yeah, I think it's a really bad path, and Riot has no idea what they're doing. I think they're only buffing this because the boots are not as popular as other options, I would say. But these boots are fucking broken, man. These boots are really good. Yeah, these boots are really fucking good. Unending Despair TLDR, basically they want less damage to be dealt, so it's 10 to 15% nerf, which is fine. Systems, Atakhan. In this match we adjusted form, blah, blah, blah. Early PvP generates double the points, increasing down to the normal amount. Functionally, so long as enough kills happen, the game feels bloody and lively. This means that the first few kills are more significant than the subsequent ones. The first few kills per game grant significantly more points, diminishing with each subsequent kill. Tower dives in particular are extremely high tension moments, and therefore tower dives grant multiplically more points. So, threshold recalibration, because these adjustments change point values significantly. We are adjusting the durations of Runes. I think they should explain what the fuck they like. We know that kills in action builds momentum for Runes, but we don't know the exact formula. Like, we don't know this amount gives Runes, this amount gives Voracious. There's no exact number. There's no formula being provided for us. That is why it's so weird, honestly. But I don't give a fuck about this. I think they should make it RNG completely and drop it 50-50, regardless of how the game goes. Clash schedule, nobody cares. And ARAM changes if you guys would like to take a look. I personally don't care. But this is it. Is there any new skin line? There is, of course. Mask Justice. They actually look really good. They look pretty good, honestly. But yeah, let's make a really quick TLDR of the patch. Thank God they changed the name patch, the patch naming actually. But it should be 25.4, not 04. They're giving me some OCD. Champions Ashe will be a lot better. Diana will be a buff for mid lane, nerf for jungle slightly. Ekko will be a buff mainly for level 5 to 7. I wouldn't say so much for level 1, but mainly for level 5 to 7 after his first recall as well. Elise will be a better fighter in long skirmishes, not a support, but in other roles instead. Maybe top lane Elise sometimes can be good also because of this change. GP, completely the same. Hwei is not that, but it's a good nerf. Jayce, that's fine, it's just an adjustment. Kalista, a bit of a nerf. Kog'Maw is exactly the same. One of the funniest patch changes, I would say. Lulu, a bit of a nerf, but she will still be in a really good spot. Belle will still be fine, I believe, but she will be played in a different way because she will have less utility and less range, but more damage in some instances. Nautilus, unnecessary change. He will gain more damage at level 1. This is just to try to make him as popular as Ral and Leona. I think they failed miserably, but yeah, this change is a bit too much for level 1. Sion is a really good change for top lane Sion and against AD champions. Against AP champions, it will be quite the same, but he gets more health regen, so it's really good for him. Teemo is kind of a revert. Warwick, one of the funniest changes of the patch, doesn't change anything. Yasuo will be receiving a buff because it's not as popular as before, so he gets 100% damage from his critical damage. Build Abyssal Mask, -5 magic resistance. I think the item is really good situationally, so they want to reduce a bit of the sustain. Same goes for Fimbulwinter because champions that in theory were not supposed to go Fimbulwinter are always going Fimbulwinter. This will make it more even for you to decide if you want to go Mirror Mana, Seraph's Embrace, or Fimbulwinter when you want to go for the Bruiserish orientation as well. Heartsteel, I think this makes sense. I don't think you should deal more damage with Heartsteel or a lot more damage because Mundo is one of the most obnoxious champions that can get profit out of this item mainly because of its E damage as well. Infinity Edge, this is not an adjust, this is a buff entirely. This item is really expensive, so losing 5 AD for 150 gold and having a wave quicker is a lot better in comparison to before. Mercury Treads, this is fine. The boots are really expensive. Play the Steelcaps might be, I wouldn't say that, but they received a sizable nerf. Symbiotic Soles are the best boots in the game along with Swifties, so enjoy. Unending Despair will deal less damage, which is fine. Atakhan, we don't give a fuck, it should be RNG, and that's it for the patch 25.4. We'll be here in 2 weeks for 25.5. I hope they don't rename it again and change the name just for some other reason, but yeah. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to subscribe to the channel, like the video if you enjoyed, and keep updated by pressing those notifications on. So thank you so much. Have a good one.